Beloved chosen ones, have you ever wondered why your life has felt like a battlefield from the very beginning? Why the struggles you endure seem greater than those around you? Why the storms rage against you relentlessly, as if something unseen is determined to break you? Let me tell you the truth. This is not a coincidence. It is the mark of divine selection. You were never ordinary. From the moment you took your first breath, the forces of darkness recognized something in you that you had yet to understand yourself. They saw the fire of God burning within you, the divine calling upon your life, and they feared it. They did not wait for you to awaken to your power. They sought to extinguish it before you could rise. But here you are, standing unbroken and stronger than ever. Even demons whisper your name with unease, not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. You belong to God, and that alone makes you a force that darkness cannot ignore. Stay with me, because what comes next will reveal why your struggles are proof of your power. If this message stirs something in your soul, like, share, and comment. I'm chosen below. Let's spread this truth together. 1. The battle you never chose, but were born into. From the moment you entered this world, the battle had already begun. Before you could even speak, before you knew who you were, the forces of darkness had already taken notice. They saw something different in you, something powerful, something dangerous to their kingdom. You were not just another soul passing through life. You were marked by God for a purpose far greater than you could comprehend at the time. This is why your life has never been easy. This is why the hardships you face seem heavier than what others endure. You did not choose this battle, but you were born into it because you were never meant to walk an ordinary path. The enemy has been working against you from the start, attempting to break you before you could realize the strength within you. Every betrayal, every setback, every painful moment was an attempt to silence the destiny that was placed upon you by God Himself. Look at the great figures in the Bible: Moses, Joseph, David. They too were marked by trials long before they stepped into their calling. Moses was nearly killed as an infant because Pharaoh feared what he would become. Exodus 1:22. He was forced into exile before he was called to lead his people. Joseph was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned. Yet through his suffering, God positioned him to save an entire nation. Genesis 50:20. David was anointed as king while still a shepherd boy, but before he wore the crown, he had to endure persecution, exile, and countless battles. Why? Because the enemy always attacks what it fears. And the same is true for you. Your trials are not random. They are strategic attempts to keep you from realizing who you are. The struggles you have endured are not signs of abandonment, but evidence of your calling. You were not meant to have an easy life. You were meant to be refined, strengthened, and prepared for a divine mission. And yet, here you are, still standing, despite the attacks, despite the setbacks, despite the weight of every battle you've had to fight. You are still here, and that alone is proof that the enemy has failed. But this is just the beginning. The reason the enemy fights you so hard is because you carry something within you that he cannot destroy, the fire of God. In the next section, we will uncover why the forces of darkness fear the light within you and why, despite their relentless attacks, you will always overcome. Stay with me. 2. You carry the fire of God. The enemy sees it. Chosen one. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the atmosphere shift? Have you noticed how certain people grow uncomfortable around you? How conversations change? How tensions rise or silence suddenly falls? This is not a coincidence. It is the unseen world reacting to the power you carry. Whether you recognize it yet or not, you are a vessel of God's presence, and the spiritual realm knows it. The forces of darkness are not concerned with those who walk in ignorance, those who live in spiritual blindness. They do not waste time on souls that pose no threat. But you are different. You are set apart. You carry the fire of God, and that fire burns so brightly that it blinds the enemy. Even before you understood your calling, the darkness saw it, and that is why your life has been filled with resistance. It is not a sign of weakness, but of divine anointing. The enemy does not attack what does not matter. He targets what he fears, and he fears you. Jesus himself said in John 1:5, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." When you walk into a space, you bring the presence of God with you, and the presence disrupts every dark force that lingers there. This is why you have faced opposition at every turn, because your very existence is a problem for the kingdom of darkness. Think of Paul, formerly Saul, a man who once persecuted believers, but became one of the most powerful apostles of Christ. The moment his eyes were opened to the truth, he became a target. 2 Corinthians 11:23 to 27 details the extreme suffering he endured: beatings, shipwrecks, imprisonment, because he was now carrying a light that the darkness could not stand. His struggles were not a sign of failure. They were evidence of his authority in the Spirit. The same is true for you. Every betrayal, every hardship, every attack was meant to break you, because the enemy saw what you carried before you did. He tried to discourage you, to make you doubt, to make you believe you were powerless. But here's the truth: you were never powerless. You were just unaware of the strength within you. Now that you are awakening to your identity, the enemy's tactics will no longer work. The fire of God within you cannot be extinguished, and the darkness knows it. But this battle is not only fought in the physical realm, it extends beyond what your eyes can see. In the next section, we will explore the battleground that most people overlook: the spiritual war that takes place even in your sleep. Stay with me, because understanding this truth will change how you fight and how you win. 3. Your spiritual battles are not limited to the physical. Chosen one. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, feeling as though you were just fighting a battle unseen by human eyes? Have you had dreams so vivid, so intense, that they left you shaken, questioning what they meant? Let me tell you, these were not just dreams. They were spiritual battlegrounds, places where your authority is tested, where dark forces attempt to challenge the power you carry. Many do not understand that spiritual warfare extends beyond the physical realm. Ephesians 6:12 tells us, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Your battles are not merely with people or circumstances. You are contending with forces that recognize your divine calling and are desperate to hinder it. This is why the enemy often comes in the night and in the quiet, where your body rests, your spirit remains awake, and the war does not cease. The forces of darkness cannot always reach you in your waking life because your spiritual defenses are too strong. So they seek to infiltrate your dreams. If you have ever experienced night attacks, disturbing visions, or relentless oppression in your sleep, understand this. It is because you are a threat. Your presence in the spiritual realm carries authority, and they are desperate to weaken you before you step fully into your calling. But here is what the enemy does not want you to know: your dreams are also a place of divine revelation. Look at Joseph in the Bible. Genesis 37 tells us that his destiny was revealed through dreams long before he walked in his authority. His brothers hated him not just for who he was, but for what God had shown him. The enemy saw Joseph's future before he did and sought to destroy him through betrayal and suffering. But what happened? Every attack only positioned him closer to his divine purpose. The same is happening with you. The enemy does not attack what is weak, he tests what he fears. Your dreams, your visions, your spiritual encounters are not signs of weakness, they are confirmation of your strength. So the next time darkness tries to reach you in your sleep, do not fear. You are already victorious. What they fail to realize is that every attack only solidifies your authority, making you even more unstoppable. But what happens when the enemy suddenly goes silent? When those who once opposed you can no longer speak against you? In the next section, we will uncover the spiritual power behind silence and what it means when darkness retreats in your presence. Stay with me. 4. When the enemy goes silent, you have won. Chosen one. Have you noticed that some people who once spoke against you have suddenly fallen silent? That those who once sought to bring you down now avoid you, unsure of how to confront you? Have you ever walked into a room and sensed an invisible shift? Conversations stopping, glances exchanged, and the air growing thick with something unspoken? This is not social awkwardness. This is spiritual recognition. When you walk in divine authority, even your silence carries power. The forces that once opposed you now hesitate because they sense something they cannot explain. The energy you carry, the presence of God within you, has grown stronger, and darkness cannot stand in its midst. Matthew 8:29 tells us how demons trembled before Jesus, crying out, "What have we to do with you, Jesus, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" They recognized his power before he even spoke. The same is happening in your life. The spiritual forces that once challenged you now shrink back, not because you fought them, but because you have already won. You may have noticed that the people who used to gossip about you, slander you, or plot against you have started to disappear. The same individuals who once challenged you can no longer look you in the eye. They struggle to form words to express the hostility they once carried so freely. Why? Because they sense the change in you. Where they once saw weakness, they now see authority. Where they once saw doubt, they now see unwavering faith. Even those who do not understand the spiritual realm on a conscious level feel it. Your presence now carries weight. Psalm 23:5 declares, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over." Your anointing has reached a level where those who once opposed you can no longer function in your presence. Their spirits recognize what their minds cannot yet comprehend. This silence is not just avoidance, it is surrender. The forces that once sought to break you now step aside because they know they cannot win. But what happens when darkness cannot operate around you? When every space you enter is transformed by your presence alone? In the next section, we will uncover how your very existence disrupts the forces of darkness and why they cannot remain where you stand. Stay with me. 5. Where you stand, darkness cannot thrive. Chosen one. Have you ever entered a room and felt an unspoken tension dissolve? Have you noticed how people who thrive in negativity grow uneasy when you're near? Do you sense that the very atmosphere around you shifts the moment you step in? This is not your imagination. This is spiritual dominion at work. When you walk in alignment with God, your very presence becomes a force of disruption against darkness. The authority you carry is not in your words alone. It radiates from your spirit, unsettling everything that is not of God. Just as light overtakes darkness, you shift the atmosphere without even trying. Jesus demonstrated this wherever he went. Mark 1:23 to 26 tells of a moment when Jesus entered a synagogue, and a man possessed by an unclean spirit immediately cried out, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us?" The presence of Christ alone forced the darkness to reveal itself. The same happens with you. Without speaking a word, without confrontation, your mere presence causes darkness to tremble. You don't need to expose deception. Your spirit already does. You don't need to fight for the power. Power follows you. People may not always understand why they react to you the way they do. Some may feel peace and clarity in your presence, while others feel exposed and uncomfortable. Those who walk in alignment with truth will be drawn to you, but those who carry hidden agendas will struggle to remain near you. Their spirits recognize what the minds cannot. They cannot operate as they once did in your presence. Have you ever walked into a situation filled with chaos, only to watch things suddenly shift? Have you seen confusion turn to order, tension turn to peace, deception unravel without you saying a word? This is the evidence of your divine alignment. John 1:5 reminds us, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Darkness does not need permission to flee. It cannot remain where God's presence abides. And now you have reached a level where the enemy no longer fights you as he once did. He has come to respect what he cannot defeat. In the next section, we will reveal how even your enemies, those who once sought to harm you, now acknowledge your strength, not out of choice, but out of necessity. Stay with me. 6. The respect of your enemies, forced, not given. Chosen. 1. Have you ever wondered why those who once mocked you now speak of you with quiet acknowledgement? Why those who once sought to tear you down now remain distant, watching, unable to deny what you have become? This is because the respect you command is not given willingly. It is forced by the undeniable evidence of your survival, your resilience, and your rise. Even your enemies have seen what you have endured. They have watched as you faced betrayals, losses, and trials that should have broken you. They set traps waiting for you to fall, Yet every attack only made you stronger. No, they have no choice but to acknowledge what they cannot defeat. This is not admiration, it is concession. Look at the life of Joseph. His own brothers, driven by jealousy, sold him into slavery. They sought to erase him from their lives, believing they had silenced his dreams forever. Yet, years later, when famine struck, they unknowingly stood before the very man they betrayed. Now, second in command over all of Egypt, Genesis 42:6. They did not honor him out of love, but because his power and authority could not be denied. The same is happening in your life. Those who once ridiculed you are now witnesses to your transformation. They may never voice it openly, but in their silence, in their hesitation, in the way they no longer confront you as they once did, their acknowledgement is clear. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." The weapons of your enemies did not succeed, and now even their words have been silenced. Saul, who once hunted David, was eventually forced to admit, "You are more righteous than I. You have repaid me good, whereas I have repaid you evil." 1 Samuel 24:17. The enemy will never willingly honor what God has ordained, but when the evidence becomes undeniable, respect is no longer a choice, it is a necessity. So do not be surprised when those who once opposed you now speak carefully, when they avoid confrontation, when they watch from afar, when they acknowledge your rise with silent acceptance. They see what you have become. They see what God has done. But what happens when you reach a point where you no longer need to fight? When darkness itself knows to step aside before you even arrive? In the next section, we will explore the moment when you stop chasing victory and victory starts chasing you. Stay with me. 7. You no longer chase victory, it follows you. Chosen one, do you realize that the battles you once fought so fiercely no longer require your effort? Have you noticed how struggles that once drained you now resolve themselves before you even lift a finger? This is the evidence of your spiritual ascension. You are no longer fighting for victory. Victory now follows you. There was a time when you had to defend yourself, when every step forward seemed met with opposition. The enemy sought to wear you down, making you believe that survival required constant struggle. But something has shifted. You no longer operate in survival mode. You now move in dominion. This is not arrogance. It is the fulfillment of Romans 8:37. In all these things, we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. You are no longer merely overcoming obstacles. You are reigning over them. The trials that once threatened to destroy you now stand as proof of your endurance. Look at the life of David. Before he became king, he spent years running from Saul, fighting battles that seemed never ending. But there came a point where he no longer had to pursue victory. God delivered it to him. Samuel 5:12 tells us that David knew the Lord had established him as king over Israel. He did not need to scheme or fight for his throne. God made it undeniable. The same is happening for you. The enemy has learned that every attack against you only makes you stronger. Every attempt to hinder you only propels you forward. And now, something profound has occurred. Darkness retreats before you even arrive. The things that once took all your energy to resist now flee from your presence without confrontation. Why? because your authority has been established. This is what Psalm 91, verse 7 means when it says, 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. The attacks no longer reach you because your level has changed. You have entered a dimension where your mere presence commands order, and darkness knows it has no choice but to step aside. So now ask yourself, what will you do with this power? What is next when you are no longer a warrior fighting for survival, but a ruler walking in divine dominion? You are untouchable. Chosen one. Do you see it now? Do you recognize the transformation that has taken place within you? You are no longer the person you once were, the one who doubted, the one who feared, the one who questioned why life seemed so difficult. The trials you endured were never meant to destroy you. They were meant to refine you, to awaken you to who you truly are. Every storm you survived was not a curse, but a test that proved you could not be broken. Every betrayal, every hardship, every attack only served to strengthen the foundation God was building within you. And now, here you stand, unshakable, unstoppable, untouchable. Even the forces of darkness have had to acknowledge what they cannot change. You belong to God, and no power in heaven or on earth can alter that truth. Isaiah 41:10 declares, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." This is the reality you walk in now. God Himself upholds you. You no longer need to seek validation, to explain yourself, or to fight the battles that have already been won. Where you go, darkness flees. What once opposed you now bows before the authority that flows through you. You carry something divine, undeniable, and irreversible. So the question is no longer whether you're chosen. The question is, what will you do with the power you now hold? Will you step into your calling with boldness, or will you hesitate? The time of hiding, of shrinking back, of doubting is over. You are not refined by fire to remain silent. You were forged to lead, to illuminate, to transform. If this message has awakened something in your spirit, like this video, share it, and comment, "I am untouchable." Let this be your declaration today. And if you know someone who needs this truth, send it to them. Together, we rise. Together, we illuminate. Together, we walk in the power of God's chosen. You are not just surviving, you are reigning. Now walk in it.